All right. Well, I think we have a critical mass here. So thanks everyone so much. And thanks to our guests for speaking today, especially Adam, you're out on the field. But hi everyone, my name is Zach Donnelly. I'm Rep. David's Communications Director. Thanks again for being here. Just so you all know, we will be recording this and sending out a press release later on with a full recording. So if you miss something, if you don't get your notes taken in time, you can look there as well. But I think we are ready to get started. So Rep. David's all you.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. And thanks everyone for joining us today. And of course, a big thank you to Adam, Steve, Nick, and Secretary Beam for being here and sharing what you're seeing firsthand. I know that we're in the middle of this busy harvest season, so I really, really appreciate your time. So we are now over 3 weeks into this government shutdown, and Kansans are really feeling the impact, especially our farmers, ranchers, producers, our rural communities. And when USDA offices are closed across Kansas, it means that real farmers lose access to the programs that they rely on during healthy harvest seasons and that they rely on to help them survive during those tough seasons. Yesterday, USDA announced that they're finally going to resume some of the FSA operations, including the commodity program payments. And it's a step I'm glad to see, though I do wish it had happened sooner. But let's be clear about where we're at. This is just a band-aid on a larger problem of a government shutdown. And our farmers, ranchers, producers are hurting. They haven't received some of their farm subsidies or loans. Conservation projects are stalled, like one that's near Baldwin City, Kansas, that can't move forward because no one is in the office to simply process the paperwork. And without crop or market reports, producers are being forced to make major financial decisions in the dark. These programs are truly a lifeline for rural America. They help our farmers recover when markets crash or weather destroys a crop. They keep small towns strong and food on our tables. And right now, all of that is frozen. And it couldn't come at a worse time. Reckless tariffs and trade disruptions have already wiped out major export markets. Kansas is the 11th largest soybean producing state, and farmers here have built these markets over decades. And now they're watching them collapse in real time. And the demand for their crops is gone. Fertilizer, feed, and fuel prices, all of these things keep climbing. And for many family farms, this government shutdown could literally be the final straw. The farm bankruptcy rate is the highest it's been in 5 years. Folks are feeling this catastrophic government shutdown. Farmers are some of the hardest working people in the country. And, they're up before sunrise. They're out in every kind of weather, hot, cold, rain. It doesn't matter. They're out doing their work and they're doing their part to feed America. They deserve a government that works as hard as they do, which is why I'm pushing for us to move forward in a bipartisan way so we have a bipartisan solution to get this government reopened. And we got to get to the negotiating table and have actual conversations because feeding our communities and supporting our rural economies should not be a partisan issue. I'm so grateful to our partners here today for highlighting the real world impacts to all of our farmers and producers who keep working even when Washington is stalled out. I'm going to keep fighting for cooperation, for common sense, and a government that is stable and works, especially for the Kansans who put food on our tables. So I just want to say thank you to our guests. Thank you to everyone else who's shown up. And I'm going to turn it over to Steve Bolin out of Olathe, Kansas, whose farm I did get to visit earlier this year. Steve, thank you so much for being here, and I'll turn it over to you now.
Representative Davis, thank you for having us. It is a trying time here on the farm. We're a little bit different than some of the other guys as we raise produce. So we're not dealing with a lot of the commodity issues that the the row crop farmers do. We do have issues with, as a produce farmer, we don't have the programs available to us that the other guys do, but we still have people that are hungry. And food stamps being shut down and programs like that, people can't buy food. I've noticed a change just in the last few weeks here at the market at the farm, sales being way down. Uh, People are just not spending the money to buy fresh produce. They are paying for their drugs. They're paying for what they can out of it. But again, input prices are sky high. Fertilizer, fuel, equipment, it just goes on and on and on. And with the FSA shut down and unavailable to get to the programs, the loans, the grant programs are all down, which I was looking at some grants before it's all started. And it's kind of went to a dead stop. So this is the time of the year which myself and most of the other farmers are planning for next spring. Some of them are putting not chemicals, but fertilizer on, cover crops on for the winter that are all crazy expensive. So we need to get these programs back up and running. And I appreciate you fighting for that cause to cross across the line to try to get people to talk and get this thing back in an operation. Because as you said, every day is kind of like a ticking time bomb. And it's not getting any easier by any means for all of us here on the farm. So that's my 2 cents on it. It's very stressful to think that, we're in a situation where we all know we're losing 75 farms a day. And it's not going to take long, and we're going to be in a world of hurt of trying to produce enough food to feed everybody. And that's my biggest concern, is being able to feed the hungry that need the food, that struggle daily anyways, and then we take programs away, makes it harder to grow it, and then we can't feed the people.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over now to Secretary Beam from the Kansas. He's the Secretary of Agriculture for Kansas.
Thank you, Congresswoman Davids. I hope you can hear me as I'm traveling in western Kansas and using cell service.
We can hear you.
But okay. Well, I may come at it first with a little bit different slant, because much of what we do is in cooperation and partnership with federal agencies. Obviously, USDA is one of those. We coordinate on some market reports, market data, which is very much in need by producers who are trying to keep up on the latest market trends. We also have interrelationships with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Association. We actually work with a lot of communities on the mapping of flood areas, potential flood areas, and how they can address that on a community basis. So when you have this shutdown, all of that just seems to kind of grind to a halt, or most of it does. We don't know, the status of our cooperative funding in some cases. So it starts to really slow you down and puts much more uncertainty into the picture than what we've had already. I think the other thing I would say is what I find somewhat frustrating, and I'm sure Congressman Davids, you as well. Not only is the government shut down, but Congress is shut down, and we'd really like for them to address things like legislation for year-round E15, which helps the grain farmers immensely. We still have some farm bill work to do. So it's time to get back to work on and really address some things, particularly some things that really don't cost money. It's just public policy that we need to address. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Secretary Beam. I appreciate your time and joining us from the road. I'm going to turn it over now to Nick. Oh my goodness, Nick Lewandowski from the Kansas Farmers Union.
Thank you, Congresswoman. It's good to be with you and with all of you as well on the panel. This is a challenging time, as you said. Harvest is in full swing. I'm up here in Republic County, and there's a lot of activity going around harvest, and then of course wheat drilling and all that too, and getting ready to move cattle off of pastures. So the work doesn't stop for farmers. We don't pause. We don't shut down. We have to keep going, and Congress should too. And I want to thank Secretary Beam for highlighting the fact that because there's a shutdown doesn't mean that Congress has to shut down too. We've got a lot of things that we need to get done. I'm appreciative of the comments on the Farm Bill because again, we've allowed the Farm Bill to expire once more, and I think it's time for us to, get serious about this. And yes, in reconciliation, there were some things done to address, crop insurance and conservation, and those are all good things, but we still have so much more that needs to be done, especially when it comes to nutrition programs, but so many other programs that make up what we know as the Farm Bill. So that's important. But I've talked with farmers in our organization, farmers in my area, and farmers all across the state, and they're very frustrated with what's going on right now. And the challenges that they're dealing with, especially when it comes to the closure of these Farm Service Agency or FSA and NRCS offices, those services, those programs are unavailable to many of them because of the shutdown. And I've also talked to some of the employees who work there at FSA and NRCS and got their perspective on things. And they're really struggling with this as well because they want to provide those services. They want to be of service to farmers and ranchers and folks in rural areas, but they can't. Their hands are tied. They've been told that they have to go in and check emails, but they can't respond to them. When a farmer has a loan through FSA and they sell their grain, during harvest, or they sell cattle, they get that check and it's got their name on it, but it also has FSA's name on it. They can't take that check into their FSA office and get it signed or notarized. That check is just a piece of paper. It's basically worthless until we get those offices back open again. The other issue is that CRP payments aren't going out. Those normally go out, the first week or two in October. A lot of our older farmers rely on that income. A lot of farmers, have put their ground into CRP, and that's part of their income. And if you're on a limited income anyway, then you depend on that. That's something that you rely on. So there's so many different things, obviously, that have become a challenge. ARC and PLC payments normally go out that second week of October. Well, here we are in the third week of October, and those haven't gone out either. So farmers are really reliant on the people, the programs, the services. I'm glad to hear that they're going to be opening back up at least partially, but we've got to get this thing back open completely. So it's time. We need to end this shutdown. We need to get things moving again. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. And then Adam, we'll go to you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Davids. I'll kind of just piggyback on what Nick said. As a farmer in a rural community, these things, it becomes a bit of a snowball effect. If we're not able to make payments, we have to go to the bank and extend our line of credits. And we're in the middle of harvest right now, and we're also making decisions for next year. We're buying seed, fertilizer, and chemical for the following year. And having that uncertainty doesn't help. And like Nick said, those program payments aren't going out. The crop insurance payments, we're having issues with those. And that's really important because, that affects our bottom line and what we're able to do into the following year. And I'm in a unique perspective here, being from a small community, and it doesn't just go to farmers. I know you, Representative Davids, you were raised by a single mom, and WIC payments come due, at the end of the month, those funds run out. And for a mom that, isn't able to feed her children, isn't able to get formula for her children. My sister is a nurse practitioner here in the rural community that I live in. And, that was a concern of hers, is that, these single mothers that, aren't able to feed their children, that don't have insurance, that need that, aren't going to be able to do that. I have another friend who's in the Navy who is stationed over in Germany right now. And, I was on the phone with her a couple weeks ago, and they've got a house payment due at the beginning of October, and they weren't able to make it because they're not getting paid as a military family. So those are issues. But as far as the farmer's concerned, again, we're not able to sit here and, make decisions for the coming year. And if we're not able to do that, it really creates that snowball effect where, it may not be a big problem right now, but it will just continue and continue and continue to snowball until we get this back and rolling. So the difficult thing is that, even when the government does get back up and running, we're going to be so far behind. So things like biofuels that are going to help American soybean farmers, Kansas soybean farmers, they're not going to be, we applaud the Congress for getting the renewable fuel standards up to where they should be, but those are going to be implemented, or should be implemented, at the beginning of November. And because this government shutdown, it may be pushed back into the following year. So, those things, it just, without that, system in place, things can just, domino effect down and, make a bigger problem than it currently is. But, that's all I got. And thank you, Representative Davids, for having me, and appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam. And I just, again, thank you to everyone who joined today. Adam, Steve, Nick, Secretary Beam, I truly appreciate you guys taking time and sharing what this shutdown really looks like for folks, boots on the ground, day to day. And we heard from you guys about things like delayed payments and families just trying to plan for now and for next year's planting season without really knowing what support or information is even going to be there from the federal government. This is not some kind of abstract policy debate. This is real people's livelihoods. And every day that the government is shut down is another day of uncertainty for farmers, uncertainty for small business owners, uncertainty for everyday folks, people in rural communities all across the state of Kansas. And that's why it's so important that we truly put partisan gamesmanship and bickering aside to get this government back open. Kansans, like no one in Kansas expects everybody in Washington to agree on everything. But they do expect us to come to the negotiating table, especially when people's jobs and futures are on the line. And I'm going to keep pushing for us to come together. I'm going to keep pushing for us to have bipartisan cooperation to get the government back open, to get USDA and other critical agencies back to serving the folks that need them the most, and that they want to serve. FSA folks are our neighbors, our friends, our family members who are trying to be of service to our communities. And they're trying to be of service to our farmers who are literally feeding not just Kansas, but the world. And they deserve a government that actually shows up for them. And so I just, again, thank you to our guests for taking time to be here with us, to be part of this conversation. for the work you guys do every day, and for the work you're doing to help keep our rural communities strong. And I'm going to stop here so we can open this thing up for questions. Zach?
Yeah, well, thank you, Rep. Davids, and everyone for those thoughts. And we have a few minutes for some questions. So if you do have a question, feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute you.
Adam raised his hand.
All right. So first, Eileen, go for it. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, hi, I'm Eileen Sullivan with the New York Times. Thanks so much for doing this. I was wondering how many Kansas farmers rely and their employees rely on SNAP and WIC and heating subsidies and what you're hearing from them now.
So I'm actually gonna ask probably, well, there's a number of folks on here who could address this with probably better raw numbers than I can. I will say that I am absolutely hearing about this, and we heard Adam already touch on this point that folks in rural communities, the thing is, Kansans we're all connected to each other. And it doesn't matter if you're living out in Western Kansas or in Eastern Kansas, all of us depend on each other. And there are absolutely folks that are part of family farms that are working in the agricultural space that depend on things like the nutrition assistance programs, that depend on some of the utility assistance programs and a variety of social safety net programs. And that's why Adam brought it up, because it matters to all of us when our neighbors, friends, and family members are struggling. I think, Nick, do you want to touch on some, and then we'll open it up to anybody else who wants to address it?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Eileen, I know for a fact that in my county, here in Republic County, Kansas, that over half of the students in our two school districts are on the free and reduced meals program. I called our school district to ask that question because I think it's important for us to know that. I think it's important for us to understand the impact that this program has. So when 55% of the students in the Republic County School District and the Pike Valley School District are on these free and reduced meals. You know that some of those kids come from farm families because that's the primary driver of our economy. And while I hate to hear that, because that means that people are struggling, I'm glad that those programs are there. And I know that it's difficult for many folks to utilize those programs because there's a lot of pride involved. But boy, when there's a program there that's going to ensure that your kid's going to get a hot, fresh, healthy meal every day, sometimes twice a day, boy, it's worth it. And hopefully you don't have to be on it forever. But certainly if it's a hand up, you should take that. So unfortunately, I don't have the numbers in front of me on Snap, but I've got contacts that would have that. I'd be happy to help you get access to that if you'd like to reach out, offline.
Yeah, Eileen, feel free to reach out to me and I can help connect you all. All right, Keith, you are next. And for our participants, let's try to keep our answers a little shorter so we can get to some more questions. But thank you so much.
Hi there. Yeah. This is for Representative Davids. We're just wondering your position on importing Argentine beef to address the rising beef costs in the U.S.
I mean, you're talking to somebody who's coming from a state where we've got like some of the best beef out there. So, I obviously can't speak for every single Kansan, but I'm just gonna be as candid as possible. I was pretty pissed when I saw that because we should be doing everything we can to support our American producers, our folks who are who really are producing like some top-notch beef, like globally, literally top tier product here. And so I would love to hear, actually, I hope that some of the, I don't know, I know Adam, you're in a different space, but I would love to hear candid feedback from you about that. I think we need to be doing everything we can to support American ranchers and producers and farmers, and not not importing in stuff that we're growing here.
Yeah, if I could, I don't know if I'm unmuted here.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so I completely agree with that. I felt the exact same way when I saw it. And what the people in Washington, D.C. need to know and realize that a lot of us farmers, soybean farmers, are also cattle producers. And in tough times like we're in on the crop side, it's that cattle side that's helping us, get through this difficult time. So um, now especially we need to be supporting American farmers when we grow I give a little pushback when you say that Kansas has some of the best beef around. I believe that we have the best beef around, and we need to be supporting Kansas farmers by that. And if you don't mind, I got a quick question. Not on this side, but I have a friend who's a CEO at one of our local banks here, and he asked, or I asked him, if they've had any problems with the government shutdown, and he said he didn't directly, but one of his customers is supposed to close on a house, and they're getting a loan through rural development. So my question is, with the, I guess the FSA aspect is coming back online, but with the rural development being under the USDA, are we going to see any of that open up as well?
And Adam, that's a great, first of all, apologies that I said some of. I completely agree. In fact, I had some great, a great steak not that long ago from Harris Angus. But anyway, look, I think what you're talking about right now is why it's so important for people to understand just how catastrophic a government shutdown is, because we've got so many folks who are actually impacted by this, and some people might not even realize it because their bank is indirectly impacted because their timelines for closing loans is extended out. That's true not just for rural development, it's true for our FHA loans, our VA loans, small business loans are impacted. The National Flood Program is impacted, which is required for some of these loans to go through. And it's one of the reasons that we truly need for everybody, Republicans, Democrats, everybody needs to come to the negotiating table so that we can get the government open. Because every single day that this goes on, this isn't day for day. Every single day that this goes on, we are that much further in the hole of supporting and helping the folks that literally rely on these federal programs to conduct their everyday business. And I can get back to you, Adam, further on whether we're seeing any real movement within rural development. But for right now, the underlying issue here is that we got to get the government open.
We'll take one more question. I know we have a few folks, but Steve, go ahead and you can mute yourself now.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot for doing this, Steve Davies with AgriPulse. I'm just wondering if anybody has heard anything more specific about the reopening of county offices from USDA other than Secretary Rollins' brief statement the other day.
Steve, I can speak to that just briefly. I got a text message from a friend of mine who works for FSA. It just said that they were reopening with limited staff on Thursday. Possibly the employees going in will be getting paid during the shutdown. So yeah, that's all I've got at this point from somebody who works with FSA. Unfortunately, I don't have any more than that.
We can follow up from our team as well if we hear anything. I don't think we have any specifics right now, but we can definitely follow up with you. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I know a few other folks had questions that weren't able to be answered, so feel free to send me an email, send me a text, call me, and we can see what we can do to get those answered. But thank you again to our participants. Rep. David, thanks for hosting, and we will see you all soon. But thanks again. Take care.
Thank you.